Welcome back to the channel. So I felt it necessary to tell you a real story with real consequences about a customer, a client of mine, losing access to their bank account. Just like Nigel Farage, and the reason I've done the previous two videos on why this is such a problem with people losing access to their bank accounts. Now, as we go through, you can let me know in the comments what you think about this story, whether you think it's fair or not, and whether you think we need some kind of banking law reform. Because personally, I think we probably do. Hear the story out and let me know what you think. There's obviously a potential other side to this story that I don't know about, just to caveat that as the devil's advocate lawyer here. And I'm obviously going to anonymize this story sufficiently so as not to divulge either my client's details or the bank's details, because that wouldn't be fair, because you don't know all of the story, and even I possibly don't know all of the story. So I'm not even going to name the bank. What I am going to do is outline the bit that I know and why I think it's a problem, as in a problem for my client, and devil's advocate as to why it may be necessary for the bank to do what they did. And you can let me know what you think about either of those scenarios and your thoughts on those. So here's what happened. Now, my client was planning to recoup and raise some funds from their personal effects, their personal belongings. But because they were not particularly good at doing so, they solicited the help of a family member to help them sell those goods. Now, in the middle of all that, some of the goods were sold and some money was paid into their account. A little while later, my client received a call from the bank to explain where this money had come from. My client explained that it was a result of selling some personal effects, raising money through a family member, and whoever bought them paid the money into their account. The bank still wanted to know where the money came from. My client said, "That's all I can tell you. I sold some stuff, a family member helped me, and the money was paid into my account." My client had withdrawn some money and spent some of it, and the bank again wanted to know where that money went that was spent, and a full explanation. Of course, a bank, and this is the devil's advocate, a bank is going to want to know where money comes from and where money is spent. So this is the first red flag. If money is paid into your account from an unknown source, you may be the unwitting victim of somebody trying to spend money in some kind of illicit way to buy some goods that they can then resell and get quote unquote clean money from a new source. And that is one very vague way of how money laundering might work. They pay money for something to an unsuspecting source and then sell whatever item that they've bought somewhere else to get clean funds, hence the term money laundering. But that was not the end of the problem for my client. My client could not explain, any more than I've just explained to you, where the money came from. It was just an individual who bought those goods, who was known to a family member, and even that was fairly tangential. And beyond that, my client could not explain where this money had come from. The bank, on not being satisfied of the explanation provided by my client, closed the account. Not only did they close the account, they placed my client on the database for fraudulent activity. That meant that other banks that had access to the same database could decline to open a new account for my client on the basis that there was a warning, not substantiated evidence or proof, just a warning that my client may have been connected to someone else involved in some kind of fraudulent activity. And in placing my client on that database, my client could then not obtain a new bank account anywhere else. Now, the lawyer before me got on the phone with the bank, with the authority of my client, then their client, to discuss what was going on with this account. And I can read to you bits of the information given to that lawyer, obviously anonymized sufficiently so that no one is compromised in any way, shape or form. This note, which was obtained by a subject access request by my client on the advice of their previous lawyer, said as follows. The customer is requesting to speak to their lawyer. The lawyer asked under what grounds the accounts have been closed down. I, that is the bank associate, have explained that we closed the accounts due to fraudulent funds being credited and spent, and that they are no longer welcome with the bank. Obviously, I'm not naming the bank or the client here. The lawyer proceeded to ask me what proof we had that the funds were fraudulent, which I, the bank associate, explained that we, the bank, hadn't received any proof that the funds were not fraudulent. The lawyer asked if the credit score would be affected by this, to which I said no. The lawyer then asked if it would affect the client's visa, to which I explained that that is not something the bank would be aware of. However, the client's name would remain on that database if they require any more information from that database holder. The very next line in this trail of evidence explains that the account was closed with a zero balance, that they've advised the customer, the client, that the account will be closed with immediate effect due to receipt and spending of fraudulent funds, coupled with no evidence to support the customer's explanation. Now, devil's advocate here, if the client, the customer of the bank, could not provide any proof of the sale of these goods to whoever it was that paid money into the account, that may look a little bit suspicious from the bank's perspective. However, if you just take an item, let's say you take your phone and you sell it to somebody in the pub or wherever, to a friend, you don't necessarily have any proof beyond the verbal agreement and the subsequent money paid into your account by your friend or man or woman in the pub buying your phone or whatever it might be. And if that is then subsequently reported as fraudulent, then that's on you and you need to prove it. Now, this is one reason. This is a very genuine plug of a product that I've developed with the help of a very talented developer. My product is called Proofify, at the link proofify.app, which will be linked in the description below. Developed alongside me by a very talented developer who runs the Versala software, who is also instrumental in getting eggsdirect.co.uk online as a community project. I'll link that in the description below as well. And Proofify is a software that helps you to prove anything that you get involved in. If you agree to a sale, you need to prove what happened. If you send out a product, if you're in business, if you buy something, if you park somewhere, if you take your vehicle for an MOT, if you get work done on it, if you've got someone coming to do work on your house to put up a fence, whatever that might be, you need proof that this happened. Now, in hindsight, had my client had proof of the transaction for these sale of these items, personal effects, my client may have been able to provide those to the bank to say, here's the proof that I sold this stuff. A photograph, an email, a phone call, a text message, an arrangement, an exchange of communications, and a receipt of funds. If my client had proof that that happened, the bank may have believed it, because according to this transcript of the bank's record of events, it was because the customer could not explain where this money came from and could not prove that they had sold these items in exchange for the money. So if you can prove that, you may avoid this situation. Because we all sell something now and again, but if you can't prove what you sold and why you received funds, you might be in the same position as my client and Nigel Farage and having your accounts closed and ending up on a fraud database so that you can't open an account anywhere else. And that will turn your life upside down, or as Nigel Farage puts it, makes you a non-person, because you can't get a bank account, you can't get a credit card, you can't get a loan, you probably can't get a mobile phone, and therefore you can't pay council tax, And therefore, if you can't pay council tax, how do you pay your everyday bills? This is a serious problem and is one of the many reasons that I sought to develop Proofify, which will help you to keep the evidence and prove your case. Because the single biggest problem you have as a client that we deal with as lawyers is when you cannot prove your case. There's a saying in law for lawyers when we teach law that you must put your case in court to an opposing witness, to an opponent, and we as lawyers must put your case for you. And for that, we need evidence. And if you don't have the evidence, it is really tough to prove your case because it goes on your word and your word only. And in this case, the bank did not take my client's word because there was no evidence. And when you get to court, you may need evidence to prove that. So check out Proofify in the description below. Please take this warning seriously. And if you're interested in how I and others like me teach new barristers, trainee barristers, do check out the membership options for this channel because I'll be putting out some dedicated educational videos on how I would teach conferencing skills, evidence in chief skills, cross-examination skills, and various other skills fairly unique to the profession of barrister. I hope you find those interesting. Please do like this video and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. And as always, thank you for watching.